Hello, everyone. Vincent Priatore here. It has been a little over a week, I suppose, since my last post. Had a very eventful week, as a matter of fact. One, the details of which I will willfully omit for now. And perhaps one day I will share these details. But for now, we'll just carry on as if nothing ever happened. I am shooting with a new camera, the T7i, which prior to this I was shooting with a T6. So I don't know if you're going to notice a difference, but just for those interested, that's that's the deal. So anyway, other than that, today we're going to talk about the Quadriga CEO and founder who died December 2018 in India and left over $200 million in limbo because he was the only person with access to its private keys. There's a lot of rumors going around with this as far as him possibly having faked his death. So, I'm going to go over a little bit of the details about the events that transpired with his death and a little bit of history, or what little history we have, of Gerald Cotton. Cotton? I don't know if it's Cotton or Cotton. As you guys know, I'm not really good with names, so I kind of just make up my own as I go. So many of you guys are familiar with this story because, it's been plastered all over. And the reason I'm talking about it now, I mentioned in a previous video, but the over 70,000 investors that held accounts at Quadriga that actually lost this $211 million are actually having the body exhumed to make sure it's actually him. Now, the body is back in Canada, but they never did an official autopsy or anything like that, which makes you wonder why they wouldn't in the first place. So anyway, to give you guys some details, and like I said, many of you guys have heard this story before, but perhaps you will humor me and hear my kind of version or thoughts on what happened. So Gerald Cotton was the CEO and founder of Quadriga, which is the largest, at the time was the largest, and one of the only really Canadian-based cryptocurrency exchanges. Now, Gerald was involved in the Bitcoin co-op in Canada and a passionate advocate for cryptocurrencies very early on. And so, this project kind of merged in with the co-op and started funding a lot of projects in that area, and it grew. What really made it explode was after the Mt. Gox and a couple of other cryptocurrency exchanges in Canada got hacked or shut down. So suddenly it became the only cryptocurrency exchange in Canada. So it's one of those things, you got to be at the right time, at the right place, with the right ideas, involved in the right projects, right? But it was the perfect spot for him to capitalize on that. So the exchange quickly grew to the point of managing over 200 million in customer accounts. So that's a pretty large number. So everybody has a lot of good things to say about this cat. He had a boat, obviously had like 14 rental properties. He had 3 or 4 houses in Canada. But everybody said he was a pretty meek but always smiling, happy kind of guy that was a little bit socially awkward and was friendly with people, but had many acquaintances, but no real friends per se. He got married to this girl, Michelle Richardson, which I am unfamiliar of how long they knew each other. But his death happened on their honeymoon. So they went to India on a honeymoon, of all places. I mean, I don't know. Some people, maybe they like India, but, people are shitting in the streets in India. It's not exactly my idea of a romantic getaway. Anyway, I think it was Jaipur or something like that, where they went. He died about 7 days into 7 or 9, maybe it was 9 days into their stay. Yeah, it was 9 days into their stay. What's suspicious about this was apparently it was Crohn's disease. A lot of people knew he had Crohn's disease. Still unlikely to die from Crohn's disease, right? Because how many people die from Crohn's disease? Although in India, when you go and you eat the food, you drink the water, there's a lot of disease and stuff. So it's not impossible for that to happen. A lot of people that travel, hell, even in Mexico, you drink the water. Sometimes you can have diarrhea, you can have stomach issues. So possible, right? Here's something suspicious. He changed his will 3 days before leaving and 14 days before his death. Is it? No. I guess 12 days before it says. Anyway, these details, in summa. You get what I'm saying. It was absolutely 3 days before he left, he changed his will. And then 9 days into his stay in India, he passed away abruptly. Now, he wasn't sick for these whole 9 days. Okay, they got text recovered. They had a big, cookout the day before. It was pretty much within 48 hours, his condition got so bad that he passed away. A lot of people are like, this is so suspicious because India is famous for forging death certificates, right? Also, they had a very strange mix-up with the body. Apparently, the body was sent back to the hotel, which then was sent to be embalmed. The embalmer wouldn't accept the body because it came from a hotel, so it was sent back to the hotel. Apparently, official records and interviews show the hotel actual employees physically brought the body to then a medical school. So students actually performed the embalmment per se. After that, the body was eventually shipped back to Canada where it was buried. It makes you wonder, all these details I tell you, so the stuff is stacked up. My first impression of this whole thing was, maybe the guy really died. I mean, India is a crazy place. He already got Crohn's disease. It could happen. But why would you be the only person that has access to the private keys to these accounts that hold over $200 million, right? All your customer accounts. And he had also been quoted telling other employees that he had a dead man switch, capito, like in the bombs, where if he died or disappeared or something happened to him, the private keys would be sent to individuals responsible at the company so that the funds could be recovered. By all accounts, others say that he's the type of guy that always has like a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And in this case, it just seems very strange that it all unfolded the way it did. So a lot of people on Reddit, online, they'll speculate the guy actually faked his death and ran off with 200 million. Other people believe that this is not true because he's already doing very well. And when you create a business and you see it grow to this point, and why wouldn't you want to keep pushing it, keep marketing it, and try to reach new heights? You obviously have the money to fund different marketing ventures and different things that you could be innovative in this space and create a name for yourself, a respectable name for yourself. Starting over, especially faking your death, seems very tiresome. If your only goal is a couple of extra 100 million, but you have to start over completely, God knows where. A lot of people romanticize this idea of running away, hiding out in a third world country. The reality is, no matter how much money you have, the amenities and the lifestyle that you can have in a lot of third world countries is just not something that you would want to give up, or give in or have. I capito. I know this. I've traveled, so I know that what sounds good. Oh, the dollar buys you all this over here in India or in South America. And it's like, yeah, but try going and living there. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the whole running away thing and trying to live overseas. But then again, there is another part of the story that was uncovered later, right, by Redditors and all this kind of online investigators, but was legitimized. So apparently there is a lot of information that leads to believe that Gerald Cotton wasn't necessarily the person that he said he was once he arrived in the Canadian, I think it was Toronto, and joined this co-op and everything. He may have had a shitty background that came from other Ponzi schemes. Some of these Ponzi schemes, they were registered and had emails sent to, and the registered emails were gerard.cotton@gmail.com. And there's this whole, triangle thing going on with this guy named Michael Patron, who apparently was kind of the co-founder of the company, but not officially. But people had seen him multiple times and said he kind of seemed like he was the dominant figure over Gerald. And this could explain a lot. And they have these conversations. These two work together, apparently, on all these different scams over the years. They're just straight Ponzi scheme, pyramid schemes, where you build it up and then you run off, you cash out. Because they were participating in these forums and talked about these projects. One of them was like SS Investments and stuff. So this could be a speculation, right? That Gerald and Michael Patron, obviously Michael Patron couldn't really be the face of the company because he had prior involvement in some pretty notorious international scams, right? So Gerald launches this thing, it gains more success and more legitimacy than he probably ever could have dreamt of. Because a lot of people got involved in cryptocurrency who were prior to cryptocurrency were involved in kind of pyramid style schemes. I've seen this again and again at conventions and different things, meetups. Why? I think it's just a fact of high risk. A lot of people are involved in higher risk kind of things, and they got involved in cryptocurrency, not necessarily fully understanding it, or took a chance, right, that paid off. I was never involved in any like pyramid scams, but I noticed a lot of people have. So I don't know, whatever. So this, I guess, is a natural transition, right, for these two. And so my theory, because a lot of people that know Gerald, right, say that he didn't seem like the type who would run off with people's money. And I mean, those are famous last words. But if you think about it, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was really proud of his company and didn't want to do this. But if he was under the influence of this Michael patron individual, which obviously people act like, he was, because at these parties and stuff, like the guy laughed at all his jokes. It definitely a power dynamic that they perceive this guy as being the one in charge between the two of them. And they had a weird story how they met 5 years earlier online, but obviously had worked together, other scams and stuff. So my theory is that if he did this, fake his death and run off, it wasn't necessarily his doing, but this Michael Pryor obviously wants his cut, right, of the money. You're talking about 200 million, two ways to 100 million each. So far, I think they said that like 33 million of the money was recovered through asset seizures and stuff. So none of the actual money was recovered. It's kind of ploof, disappeared. So very questionable, the whole situation. Seems like something out of a novel, really. And so I will keep you guys updated on the situation. Obviously, the story is not unknown, but I figured I would share for those of you guys that haven't really taken all the details, because I grabbed a lot of these details from a lot of different sources so I could kind of frame it, not just on, the court case, they're trying to exhume the body. Did I touch on that? I don't know. But to give you the fuller picture. So yeah, just recently, the court is seeking to put an order to exhume the body to make sure it's actually him. Because all this stuff can be faked, especially all the verification of identity happened in India. Over in Canada, once it got to Canada, they just buried this guy. So, I'm sure this is something he accounted for. So even if they prove, it's not him, well, then I guess they start looking for him. And we'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I'm here. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment to let me know what you think on this whole story. Kind of very eccentric story, but interesting. It's my kind of story, actually. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, buy red and sell green.
Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, dog. Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken. Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram.